Dwight Kurt Schrute III is a Scranton, Ohio-based salesman for the paper company Dunder Mifflin. His titles include being the original assistant to the regional manager, although this is somewhat disputed, and former assistant regional manager. Additionally, he's a bed and breakfast proprietor at Schrute Farms, a beet plantation owner.
Hey, whoa. Excuse me. What?
Ugh,
What's going on
damn
here,
it.
Chris?
Chris. Sorry, Rainn. Sorry, wrong
Chris,
bio.
It's
wrong
a fictional character.
My
It's
bad,
a fictional character.
We got caught up in
Bye.
it all. All right, let me try again.
Okay, thank you.
Hey there, I want to start out by asking a question to all of you. How many of you would consider yourself to be spiritual? Another question, how many of you would consider that being spiritual a necessary component within life to finding fulfillment, happiness, and all these other great things? And this being a careers-based podcast, if we can find different levels of fulfillment or different levels of meaning towards life and living in our careers, all the better. And now this conversation comes by way of this guy that you might be familiar with, Rainn Wilson, formerly of The Office. Yeah, and as you'll soon find out, he represents so much more than what that character was all about. And in this conversation, it's a wide-ranging and quite expansive one at that. We cover a lot of things, and first and foremost, his book, Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. And you can kind of see the angle here on spirituality. But in this talk, we speak about what spirituality means. We also get into, how he sort of abandoned it at one point within his career and what that led to and why he decided to come back around on it. Beyond that, we get into conversations looking at life, humanity as a whole, and what we're suffering from and how notions of spirituality could actually be a tool for us healing and finding ways of coming back around together and just making this planet a better place to live on. We also talk about things like technology, of course. We talk about, success and attainment and a bunch of other things. And hey, it's Rainn Wilson, so there's going to be some humor that's dropped in there. I certainly encourage everyone to listen to the full-length conversation. It was about an hour. Rainn was really generous in his time, but we cover a bunch more than that. In this YouTube video, we're going to kind of touch on some of the highlights, but again, there's so much more. And one quick ask here while I've got your attention. If you're liking this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It would help a ton. All right, well, let's get into it. Here's Rainn explaining why we need to be having more spiritual conversations and what we're missing out on by not doing so.
We're not having enough spiritual conversations.
Yeah.
That's it. Just plain and simple. And why is that? Why can't we talk about life after death or the journey of the soul or the purpose of suffering or what consciousness is? Why can't we talk about what's sacred and holy in our lives? We have, as I say in the book, we have thrown out the spiritual baby with the religious bathwater. And there are so many conversations we could be having that would help us, both personally and collectively, would help us on a mental health perspective, would help us find greater meaning and unity as a society if we were having those conversations.
Now, this next clip represents Rainn himself speaking about his past a little bit. We get into that, his upbringing. He was raised within a religious household, the Baha'i faith, but he did, in his youth kind of abandon it and kind of rebelled against it. And he speaks about, how that loss of it, I suppose, manifested itself and what ultimately brought him back around. And I want you to listen really carefully because there's a statement within this clip that kind of shook me a little bit, that surprised me. And I think it's something that we can all sort of learn from. So check this one out.
You've already spoken to this already, but going through some difficult times there and not exactly being fulfilled by this. I think you'd mentioned you had a great apartment, you were in a great relationship, and that yet still at night you're finding yourself not being able to get to sleep. You're crying yourself to sleep at times, like it being that to that point. And even, as you progress further on to your career into The Office, 3 straight Emmy nominations, and still something was missing. And I'd imagine it was around that point where this notion of spirituality started to re-enter your life, after that period of maybe rejecting it and trying to find your way on your own. that it brought you back around. Is that kind of, is that inaccurate?
Yeah, it's I quote in the book the great Julia Cameron, who wrote that amazing book, The Artist's Way. That's a kind of companion journal workbook for artists. And she said, I come to spirituality out of necessity, not out of virtue.
Yeah.
And I love that phrase and that's how it worked for me. Like, I would love to sit here, Chris, and say, oh, I'm really spiritually evolved and I'm really wise and I could be a guru and I could give you advice on how to live a more meaningful, happy life. I can't do that, but I needed spiritual tools to get through, but my own mental health issues, addiction issues, even career issues, like you mentioned, and I've only started talking about this recently, like, one of the most unhappy times in my life was when I was on The Office, and people are really astounded by that. But isn't that the human condition? Like, it's people who win the lottery and then and they're miserable.
In the course of this interview with Rainn, I came to understand that, one, he's, of course, a very humorous individual, but beyond that, and probably more so, like, how deeply intellectual he is and how compassionate and how caring he is, quite frankly. I mean, the conversation, yes, we spoke about him and his past and a lot of those things, but a lot of it centered on bigger issues that affect humanity, that affect us all. And he has some ideas and opinions on, one, some of the sufferings that we're all experiencing. And then again, these notions of spirituality being, a tool for us to kind of heal some of these things. So here's him speaking about some of the things that we're faced with right now and why we need some spirituality within our lives to solve these problems.
I write about this in Soul Boom, the fact that we are undergoing a great number of pandemics right now, not just COVID, but racism, sexism, materialism, climate change can be viewed as a pandemic. Consumerism, in a sense, is a pandemic where we commodify everything, and the list goes on and on. And I believe that, again, another thesis of the book is that there are spiritual solutions to these pandemics, that we're not going to fix them merely with legislation and policy.
This next clip represents something a little bit different. And I do want to say that I really, really enjoyed Rainn's book, Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. Everyone should go out and grab a copy as soon as this video is over. But at the same time, authenticity, that's what this show, Life As is all about. So I did have one sort of issue that I had with the book, and I wasn't going to shy away from it. So here's me kind of challenging Rainn on one particular point.
This is the only point of contention that I had with the book, and I was kind of
please bring it on.
Whether I bring it up or not, I don't know, but this whole thing's built on authenticity, so what the hell, here we go. So hashtag pandemic _ buyer's remorse _ premium Japanese soybeans. And I do have a quote here from you, Rainn. They're currently sitting in my cupboard, gathering dust, and will probably never be eaten. I do want to remind you, this program is produced out of Japan, based out of Japan, and the shade thrown at the Japanese soybean, I did feel it was a little bit much, but please tell me they've been eaten.
No, sir, they haven't.
Oh my God.
I need to find them. And I wish I'd known that you were going to ask me, because I could have brought them and showed them to you on camera. But during the early days of the pandemic, there was a run on like toilet paper, but there was also a run on like beans and pasta and things that would keep for a long time. And I think my wife bought a bag of $20 Japanese soybeans. And I told her, I was like, just buy them. Buy this soybean.
Buy them all.
I did want to mix in some breaks of levity within this conversation, so I hope you enjoyed that. Well, returning to the more serious side of things, we did get into this notion of technology, and as listeners of this program know, there's a whole segment, Crystal Ball segment, where we examine the future, and oftentimes it has to do with technology. So here's a question that I asked Rainn about that, and I want to hear his thoughts on it.
I think tech has become this God in a way. It's become its own religion in a sense. And a lot of people find it to be the answer to many societal, environmental, even economic ills that we're facing. But it might be obvious at this point I'm sure you would beg to differ that technology is this false idol. And I'd love to hear from your perspective, like, what is it that tech is not offering? Like, what are we missing out by, falsely attaching ourselves to it as our savior? Kind of an interesting question, I thought.
Well, tech is allowing us to have this Zoom conversation and have a scintillating, meaningful conversation that we get to share with other people. And they may like it, they may not, but that's pretty wonderful. We get to do it on this computer that I'm doing it on. I can Google anything. I have all my photos stored on it. I can write the great American novel on it. I can edit a movie on it. There's so much that I can do. That is miraculous. But I won't say for all of tech, but here's just an example of tech. Going back to the Grant study and the idea of community and connection. So what tech gives us are, Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook. And these, I believe, create false communities. They feel like a community. You have quote unquote friends. You have hearts and likes and thumbs ups, and you are interacting with people and commenting on their photos. And we get a little dopamine hit. Just like when we get a pat on the back physically, we get a dopamine hit. We get a dopamine hit when someone hits a thumbs up or a like or a star on our photo or our video. But it's a fake community. It's not really connection. It's false connection. And Dr. Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, has an incredible Substack, and he's coming out with 2 books on this issue, that the mental health epidemic and social media and screens are intimately connected. But it has a lot to do with the sense that there is a fake and false community that has been created. And that's an illusion of tech. It's tech seemingly filling a human need, but actually creating a deeper human need.
Now, I would have hated myself, and probably those within my social circle would have also been on top of me had I not asked at least one question related to The Office. So here's my question for Rainn relating to that time in his life.
The laughter that the show brang and that the character brang. Is brang a word? Is brang?
Well, it can be. We can make it one.
Had brought, used to brought, brang.
Had brought upon. Yeah. I'm sure the listeners understand.
I'm going to go with brang. I'm going to fully commit. That is incredible bounty. People talk about how healing The Office was and how uplifting it was, and they were going through a hard time, and it helped them through a depression and through COVID. And oh my God, I mean, I'm so fortunate to be a part of something where I got to play a cool character. I got to support my family, and it really helped people's hearts. I mean, win-win all around.
Now, this is the last video I'd like to show you within this video highlights compilation, and it's simply based on this conversation point of why do we need spirituality within our work? And again, Life as being this careers, life exploration-based podcast, I thought it was a nice one to close things off. So here's Rainn giving his ideas on that.
We need spirituality because it's reality. And if we are not including spirituality in our conversations, in our families, in our work, in our personal expression, in our day-to-day lives, then we're just taking a large chunk of what is reality and excluding it. Spirituality is just as real as this iPhone right here. It's part of who we are as spiritual beings having a human experience. And so it's just as we benefit from not being in denial and taking in all of our reality, emotional, psychological, sociological, material, career paths that you're exploring, it's part of what it means to be a human being, and we benefit from incorporating it into our lives. And the point I try and make in the book is, again, it's helpful for personal transformation, and it's also, there are tools to be found in spiritual topics that can help in social transformation as well, and making the world a better place.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the highlights of this conversation. Again, I would encourage you to go listen to the full-length conversation wherever you access your podcast. Just do that search for Life as a ... And while I do have your attention here, I mean, I would really, really appreciate a like or subscribe. I mean, I say this in every single video, but I think the conversations that we're having here are meaningful. They deserve to get in front of more people. And we're speaking with people who represent a wide range of careers. And I think this information is useful to people in a lot of ways. You know, new sources of inspiration, you know, maybe potentially setting them up for the next 20, 30, 40 years of their lives. So the algorithm on YouTube, the only way that it knows that this content matters is when people interact with it. So yeah, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. All right, well, I do look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Life as a